Hello and welcome to the Star Business Solutions webinar for October 14th, 2021. Welcome to everyone to our webinar. Thank you for giving up your valuable time and effort to join us today. Today's webinar is a little different as we're not going to cover one of our software solutions or introduce one of our software partners. We wanted to add back a little to our customers and contacts, and as such have engaged DST, Digital Storytelling Collective, to address ways to recharge your B2B sales pipeline, which is very relevant given that lockdowns are reducing and ceasing in many areas. Some housekeeping issues. The webinar today is being recorded. A link will be sent within 24 hours to all people who have registered for the webinar. If you wish to download a copy of the handout for this webinar, you'll see in your control box, probably about 2/3 of the way down, there is a greyed out area that says handouts 1 of 5. So you can click on that, open it up, and then you can download the handout to your own laptop. So please feel free to do that at your leisure. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please write them down in the questions section as we go. If you wait until the end, there's a good chance that you may forget what you wanted to ask, so just write them down as we go, and Craig and myself will answer them at the end of the presentation. We've got a fairly packed agenda today. A lot to go through, and here is a list of the items that Craig will be addressing. I'll not read through all of them, just to save a little bit of time. Some introductions. I'm Norman Hall, Director of Marketing for Star Business Solutions. Our guest presenter today is Craig Harris. I met Craig about 10 years ago, and he's been helping Star ever since. Craig is the Managing Director of the Digital Storytelling Collective, who provide advertising, brand consulting, email marketing, SEO, website work, and other digital media services. He's been in the industry for over 30 years and has a wealth of experience dealing with many high-profile names, both here and overseas. He also has significant experience with software and digital tools related to the marketing industry. So, without further ado, I will hand over today's presentation to Craig. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Norman. That was a wonderful introduction. Just thank you for those who are attending today. Just to give you a quick background on my experience, as Norman said, I've been working in the marketing space for over 3 decades. I've done everything from launch beers and casinos to selling food and even top secret military technology. And topical for what's happening at the moment, I've also introduced vaccines into Australia, done the marketing around that, plus an entire range of industries and sectors and products going back a very long time. What I hope to do today is to give you some of the learnings of that experience that I've built up over 3 decades and put it in the context of how that applies to B2B businesses. So we'll start off with this one point, which is around organic pipelines versus inorganic. What we're talking about when we're talking organic pipelines, that's effectively digital marketing techniques and digital lead generation techniques versus the inorganic, which is probably the more traditional approach, where it would be your sales team reaching out to people. It might be networking events, maybe conferences and things like that. So this just gives you some indication of what the difference is in terms of the cost of customer acquisition is from the digital space compared to the inorganic space. So as you can see there straight away, there's quite a substantial difference in how more cost-effective this approach actually is. So what we also want to talk about is the techniques of capturing attention. I've put a couple of points up on the slide for you to actually look at, and I'll explain why in a second, why we've covered off these things. So things like podcasts, Netflix, All of those things, as we all know, have an important role in how people spend their time nowadays. What Microsoft has also done is analysed how long it actually takes, how much attention span people actually have, and that number continues to drop. The reason this information is important is that when you're promoting your business, you're not just competing against your competitors, you're competing against everything else out in that space that's competing for attention. We live in the attention economy, and you have to understand that your first goal with your marketing is to stand out and to be something that's compelling or interesting or entertaining enough that you're going to capture attention. So effectively what we're saying is that you must earn my attention. Now, techniques to capturing attention in the B2B space include things like thought leadership. So that's where you're passing on information that of experts within your organization. So for example, you might be in the engineering space, so you might get one of your engineers to write an article about a specific case study or specific situation that reveals something about the process that the reader may not have known beforehand. You see thought leadership a lot in the media, where they'll reach out to someone who's an expert and get them to comment on a particular situation or get their insights. As in the B2B space, you want to be creating that sort of content for your target audience as well, because it's part of the qualification process. You also need to consider keyword-focused content. So part of the process is that you need to research what are the keywords that your target audience is using to find the information that they want. You may have an understanding of what you think they're looking for, but through this research process, you'll quite often find different terms, technology, and a different approach to what you need to use to get their attention. That content, that keyword information is key in putting it in headlines and in your website so that it can be, your content can actually be discovered through browsers. You also need to consider something that people in the B2C space don't necessarily have to do, which is that in the B2B space, you have to think that the qualification process is a longer process. There are more steps in it. If I'm going to buy a pair of jeans, I can jump online, look at the jeans, place my order straight away. If I'm going to place a $50,000 order for a piece of technology or for a professional service, I'm going to go through more steps before I decide to make a decision. So the steps in that process are awareness, education, qualification, and then finally conversion. So at each stage of those processes, you need to be able to engage with your target audience. For example, with awareness, it might be, I know that I have a problem. I'm still trying to understand what that problem is. So by having information on your website or your owned media, you can actually help people on that process. And if you can connect with them early in that decision-making process, you have a greater chance of converting them at the end, because you're building trust and your reputation. Education is where I now have an understanding of what my problem is. Now I'm starting to drill down into the detail of that and decide what different options I want to look at. Qualification is, okay, now I know what I want to solve my problem. Now I need to determine who I want to solve that problem for me, whether it's a product or service. This is where you have a separate level of information which demonstrates why you're the best solution to their needs. And conversion is very much about the processes that you have to convert somebody who is a potential lead into a fully qualified lead that your sales team can then respond to. Another part of this process, and a very important part, is case studies and testimonials. You have to think of your brand existing only in the digital environment, so the people that you're reaching out to or the potential new customers assume that they know nothing about you. So part of what you have to do is build a profile around your reputation, and case studies and testimonials are essential in the B2B space. If you have that information, it's just another risk mitigation box that people can tick, and then they can move on. If you don't have that, it becomes very difficult to get people to that final point of conversion. The next thing that we want to talk about is website design. You may have a website which works very much like a brochure. It has the most basic information about your product and services. It assumes that the people who are coming to your website have some understanding of the solutions and products that you offer. All you need to do is provide them with the final bit of information, and that's enough to get them to convert to an actual client. That's not the way it actually works. If I do a keyword search and I land on your website, the chances are that I will be one of the majority of people who stay on your site for less than 10 seconds. And the reason being is once I get to your website, I'll look at the information. Unless there's something that captures my attention instantly, then I'm going to move on. So what you need to do is come up with the information and the content within your website, and visuals play an important role in this that's going to get people to stay on your site for longer than 10 seconds. The average page view is about 37 seconds. Your goal is to get people onto your website and to stay there for 2 to 5 minutes. And the more you can get them to do that, the better that will actually be in terms of conversion rates. That will happen more often when people come to your website for the second or third or even fourth time. Your goal is to target a 30% return visitation to your site, because what we find is the vast majority of people do not qualify the first time they visit a website in the B2B space. On average, it takes 4 to 5 touch points before they will even reach out to an organisation. So it's very important that you focus on that number, which is the return visitor numbers, which you will see in your Google Analytics. Once you start getting those numbers up and getting people to come back to your site again and again, you'll find that there's a much greater chance of conversion. But what you also need to do is every time they come back to your site, they're looking for different information. They might have started out with a very general view of what they need. By the time they have that third or fourth visit to the site, they're stepping through those processes that we talked about earlier. So you need to be able to have additional information in there that helps them pre-qualify to the point where at the end of the process, they'll come to you and they'll be a fully qualified lead. And what we find is, by following the processes that we outline in this presentation, most of our clients are finding that the qualification of the leads is much higher, and often they don't have to go through the educational process that they would normally go through in qualifying a lead, which also helps in terms of the lead time as well. So leads qualify and convert much faster. It also helps manage expectations, because you might find that people have unrealistic expectations. The content you have on your website and your other online resources will help manage that process and make sure that people they have the right expectations, and they can also bring other people in the decision-making process into that as well. Another consideration is the age of your website. The way the websites and the technology works nowadays is it's evolving at such a rate that any website that's more than 3 years old is considered redundant technology. In fact, a lot of the CMS solutions won't support sites that are older than 3 years old. And that's where you start having not only problems in terms of having your content indexed and the technical SEO around your website, but you also start having security problems as well, which is becoming more and more prevalent. The other benefits of the latest technology is that you can actually develop something which is a multi-device online experience. So when you're developing a website, especially in the B2B space, we find that most potential leads start out their experiences on their smartphones. And then over time, they'll graduate to their desktop or laptop computers, which is where they make the final conversion. But if you don't have that point where somebody's got 10 minutes waiting in an airport, or they look something up online where they're thinking about it, and then you help them navigate to that process in your website, if it's not optimized to do that, then you get poor results. Just one case in point that I can bring to people's attention now is we developed the Destination New South Wales Media Centre, which generates thousands of media opportunities for Destination New South Wales across the globe every month. And as part of that process, we found that the majority of journalists start their journeys through a smartphone, and they finally graduate to a desktop or a laptop computer, which is where they get the information they need to publish the stories. So we find that's pretty consistent nowadays across the board. When we're talking about your website should be the central point for all of your marketing activity. Whether you're doing paid advertising, whether you're doing social media, everything should come back here. It should be your single source of truth. It should be where I can go to and find any of the information I actually need. It should be a rich resource that I can come back to no matter what level of qualification I'm actually at. So the goal is to create content that captures attention in less than 10 seconds. Visuals play a big role in that. The researchers indicated that you can look at an image and understand what's in that image and the context of that image in 13 milliseconds. So that's why images are very important. So if you have platforms like Instagram that built purely around the image because they know that works in terms of capturing people's attention. So if you're not using images very effectively, you're using the same stock images as everybody else, or you're not being creative, you're not using visual story in your communication, then you're missing a major opportunity. You also need to back it up with well-written, accessible content. When we're talking about accessibility, no jargon. You have to write content on your website like you're talking with somebody who has no understanding of your product or service. What we find is that most organisations overestimate the knowledge that's actually out there from either their customers or their potential customers. You don't want to be patronising, but you want to be able to make content accessible so that they can come to your site or read your content on social media and feel that they've learned something, so that you've given them something, you've empowered them to make their decision-making process. Your website should work as a non-linear book. So what we mean there is that think of it as there was a series of children's books that came out, I think, about 20 years ago, which is Choose Your Own Journey, which allowed children to actually look at a book and then navigate the story differently every time to have a different experience. Websites should work that way. They shouldn't be treated as a non-linear thing. My journey might be very different because I'm looking for a different type of solution. My business might be different. My needs are different. And they can change from every time I visit your website. So I need to be able to actually create my own stories by navigating my way through content. So I get to the end of it and go, okay, I understand what I want and need, and then I can move to the next step in the process. And there should be clearly defined chapters and pages. The UX or the user experience design of your website should be such that it's very easy for me to work my way around and find exactly what I want. Role of social media in the B2B space. We have these are the stats in terms of usage by brands around social media channels. So if you were to look at this as in a raw stat form, you would think that I should be focusing my attention on Facebook and Instagram. The reality is that the numbers are misguided because those first three channels are really geared for B2C. They are not very effective channels in the B2B space. The most effective channels for you would be LinkedIn and Twitter. Now, the reason Twitter is so powerful is each of these channels, their algorithms only show your content to a certain percentage of your followers, whereas Twitter allows anyone who wants to see your content to actually see it for a period of 18 minutes. So imagine that what you're doing is you're putting up a story, you use a hashtag in that story, it's visible to anybody who's searching on that hashtag for a period of 18 minutes, and then it's gone. Now, what that means is if you can put the same post up on Twitter 5 times in the one day, and it may be seen by completely different people altogether. Hashtags also play a very important role in this as well, because hashtags were invented by Twitter users as a way of stringing conversations together. So you'll notice that journalists and the media use Twitter a lot, so do politicians. It's used because it's such an effective way of getting a message out, and within minutes of launching a Twitter post, if you're using the right hashtags, you'll notice that you're getting people clicking on it straight away. It's one of the fastest ways for businesses to get their message out there and build their profiles. LinkedIn works in a similar way, but LinkedIn is even more targeted to professionals and people in the business space. It's important that all of the people in your organisation who are involved in the communication and sales process have a properly maintained LinkedIn profile, that you work to build your networks in there, because this is it's a free way of actually getting your profiles up and getting your reputation up. It's also an opportunity for you to build your own page in LinkedIn, which you can invite. Once you actually have that in place, you can then go out to your network and invite people to follow you, and then you can publish content there as well, and then drive that activity back into your website. That all helps increase the profile, the organic profile of your website as well, because those links all count to Google. They see this as, okay, this is credible information. We have links coming back into the website, so we're going to boost your organic profile. Followers on LinkedIn also see your posts even if they're not logged in. So if I'm not logged in now and I log in later on today, you posted something earlier, I'll be able to see that post. So that's available for me to see. And hashtags are also an essential tool within LinkedIn. The beauty of LinkedIn and Twitter is you can post relatively infrequently. You can focus your attention just on these two channels, and you can see what impact that's actually on driving not only traffic to your website, but also conversions as well. And it also helps you understand what people want to engage with. If you see that something's getting 50 likes and something is getting no likes, you'll know that whatever the 50 likes is where you need to focus your attention. Retargeting is also an important part. So let's say, for example, we've done all this activity. We've had an organic an SEO strategy where we've used all the right keywords that our target audience is using. We've optimized our website. When I come to the website, the content is fantastic. It's very visual. It's easy to navigate. It's helping me with the discovery process. I then leave the website. Now, I may not come back to the website. So that means that those potential leads are gone. What happens with retargeting, and we've all been, you could argue that probably have been the victims of retargeting, is a series of ads will follow you around once you actually visit a website. So let's say, for example, if you go to the Star website, and once you leave there, depending on which page you go to, specific ads will actually follow you around for up to 6 weeks. And what that is designed to do is to keep reminding you of the product or service that you're looking at, and also to reinforce the brand. What the research indicates is that leads are 70% more likely to convert with retargeting ads. 49% of all brands actually use retargeting as a strategy. A lot of B2B businesses in Australia don't, and it means that they're losing a lot of potential traffic and also conversions, because you have to keep in mind that if I've come to your website, I'm partially qualified. If I then leave the website, your website, and then I go and look at a competitor's website, you want to stay front of mind, and retargeting actually helps with that process, and it keeps drawing them back. And with your retargeting ads, you can bring them back to a specific page. It might be a call to action, it might be a white paper or something like that, or to more information on what they've actually just been looking at. So that's why retargeting is considered to be over 1,000% more efficient and more effective than normal paid advertising. SEO and organic search optimization. This is really important. It's probably one of the most important considerations when you're developing content for your site and the way that your website is designed. You can have the best website, you can have the best product, you can have the best service in the solution, but if I can't find it through an organic search, and 99% of the time I won't be looking for a particular brand, I'll be looking for a solution to a problem, then you might as well not exist. The other thing is, if I'm coming through an organic search to your website, the chance is that I'm more invested to begin with. So you're answering a problem that I've asked a browser about. The average B2B bounce rate is about 75%. So let's say you bring 1,000 contacts to your website a month. 75% of those will disappear in under 10 seconds. That doesn't mean that they're gone forever, but there is a good chance of that happening. That's why you have your retargeting. But what you want to do is make sure that those 25% who stay on your site go through the qualification process. On average, we're talking about a 0.6% of conversions from that traffic. So it's a relatively low number. So this is very much a numbers game. So it's always about creating content and having a continuous content process so that you can drive more and more traffic into your site, and you can learn what content is driving that traffic and create more of that type of content or continue to build on that over time. In comparison, if you were to spend money on AdWords or other forms of paid advertising, you're talking about an 85% bounce rate is common, but also conversion rates are much lower. They're about 1/3 of what they are from organic traffic. So SEO and organic search optimization would be our suggested priority for any organisation wanting to build B2B organisation wanting to build their profile and drive sales. The reason that the way that Google works is it's recrawling your site every 2 weeks. So if you want to keep your rankings on particular keyword searches, then you need to be posting content on a regular basis. So if you want to keep your rankings on particular keyword searches, then you need to be posting content on a regular basis. That content should be optimized for the keywords that you've actually set out to build your profile on. So you might have 10 articles on the one subject, but change your headline and change the subject a little bit. But the whole idea is the more content you have on a particular subject, the greater chance you have of moving up the rankings. If you're number 1 on a Google ranking on a keyword, you'll get roughly about 20% of the traffic. By the time you drop to the bottom of the page, you're down to about 5% of the traffic. Once you get beyond page 1, those numbers start dropping incrementally. So it's very important to get your profile up on particular keywords, which is why it's so important to understand what your customers are actually searching for. So the goal is to keep creating content every 2 weeks. So that should be part of your marketing strategy. There is also content that you should be creating around thought leadership. We touched on thought leadership earlier, and effectively that's getting information out there that helps people who may not be in the purchasing process at the moment, but they're wanting to learn more about a product or a solution or an issue. If you're publishing that sort of content, that not only builds traffic to your website, but it also builds the organic profile of your website and your other pages as well. It also opens up opportunities where you might get media coming to you, getting your opinion on particular issues, which is also then opens up a whole channel of what they term earned media. The other thing that you need to consider, and this also relates back to the fact why you don't want a website that's more than 3 years old, is something what we call technical SEO. And technical SEO is technical search engine optimization. What we do there is Google for one browser is constantly changing their algorithm. So what you need to do is in the technology in your site, you need to be constantly updating that to reflect their changes. And to give you an understanding of the scope of that, in previous years, Google has updated their algorithm 500 times a year. In the past 12 months, they've done it 4,500 times. So you need to be in a position where you can monitor that and make sure that your ranking doesn't plummet overnight simply because you weren't aware of one of these algorithm changes that Google's put in place. And I've seen organizations who have not paid attention to this and have lost their rankings entirely within a week or two, simply because they're not staying on top of this. The most important and the best converting traffic you will ever have is from referrals. The problem with referrals is it offers a diminishing return. You can only go back to people a certain amount of times, and after a while, that no longer is effective. The next focus should be on organic searches. Organic searches, the benefit of that is once you start to build your profile, it's a granular process where the more you do it, the more that you will increase your profile. So it's not like paid advertising where once the money is spent, it's gone. With organic searches, the investment you make will continue to give you a return over the longer term. Retargeting is the next one in terms of priorities, because once you've got the traffic coming to your website through organic searches, retargeting makes sure that you bring them back to your site and reintroduce them to the qualification process and to new content, which is an essential part of the process. The last one in the that you should be focusing on is programmatic ads. So things like AdWords, display ads, there's editorial content, all of those things should be used sparingly. So they can be very expensive, their returns can be very poor, but they still have a very important role to play. So let's say, for example, you're competing against a much larger organization for attention, and you can't get your ranking up because there are 2 or 3 players in front of you who've been doing this for a much longer time, and you just can't get your rankings to where they need to be in the short term. What you would do in that place is you would use some very targeted programmatic ads to get your profile to the top of the page, which you can actually do with AdWords. And you might also use display ads in particular mediums, or you can do very specific targeting with programmatic ads based on roles, geography, business type, business size. There's a lot of information that's available to help you with targeting. But again, it's an expensive process and it should only be used to supplement the other areas of your marketing. So programmatic ads would include things like AdWords, social ads. So whether you're placing ads on LinkedIn or Twitter, you can buy those sort of things and you can do some great targeting on there. Display ads, which can also, they can appear anywhere. So you might be looking at a newspaper and an ad appears in the right-hand column or whatever. You can buy that sort of space, and what it is it's very much based on targeting. So the beauty of the programmatic ad space is that you can be very, very targeting. It's not like old world advertising where you didn't control who got to see your ads. You can be targeted, but you really do pay for the opportunity. And retargeting is, some people refer to it as remarketing. They're the ads that you see once you've actually visited an actual website. Another important consideration is that you need to give something to get something. So one of the most valuable things that you can do is provide knowledge to somebody looking for a solution in the B2B space. You may not be able to give away a $2,000 voucher for something, and I would suggest not doing that. Knowledge is considered to be a currency online, so that if you can be a place that I can come back to and I build trust on the information you're providing, and I can come back and read more and more articles, and I'm inspired to do it because the tone of the conversation is such that it's not dry, it's not sales oriented, it's more about helping me in my task, then you've got a much greater chance of converting people. Other tools that you can do are things like white papers, where you can have what they term gated content, where to get this white paper, I have to put in my email address so you can use it to build your database. Ebooks work the same way, they just tend to be a bit larger. So in both of those options, what you're doing is you're taking your specific knowledge and you're putting it into a form that somebody can use to help them research something. They perceive that that has a value, and the transaction is to get that, they have to provide you with something. Most of the time it's in the form of contact information. The other thing that you want to do is customer stories, because what people are looking for is what have my competitors or other people in my space experienced from your product or service? What has been their experience in dealing with you? And if you have some great compelling stories of how you've solved problems, how you've done something out of the box or really changed an organization from the service and products you've provided, that's a very compelling way of actually converting somebody. Think of it in the way that what you want to do is take all of those things that you used to do in a room when you're doing a presentation, whether your salesperson is sitting in a room in front of somebody talking about your business and the products and services you have to offer, and create a digital form of that, almost like a avatar of your brand personality, so that people feel like they're dealing with a human and they're having a one-on-one experience rather than something that's a mass marketing experience. This is the secret sauce that we find for a lot of our clients in the B2B spaces. If we take that idea of generosity to an entire other level, it's about doing things like pricing calculators, report builders, and things like that. So, for example, in the case of Star, we have created 2 pricing calculators for 2 of their products. And this information allows somebody, so somebody can come in, they can build a report in terms of what software is going to solve, is ideally suited to their specific business type and their specific business sector, and also the amount of staff they have and the way that they do business today. So from that process, I can print out a report, which I can then share amongst other people in my organisation, other stakeholders, other decision makers, and from that we can walk away and go, okay, we need to spend this amount of money and we can actually have this outcome from it. So there's a bit of an ROI component to it. We have another client that we've built one that goes even further, and it allows them to produce a report that that they can take to other people in the organisation and demonstrate how they're using digital assets across the entire organisation, how much this particular solution can save them in time and dollars, the risk profile of their business, and a whole heap of other data. And what we find is that these reports are instrumental with a lot of our clients in developing very highly qualified leads. And a lot of those leads convert to customers. The other benefit of these solutions is that if I'm in the early stages of discovery, I might have an unrealistic understanding of what the price or the process is around a product or solution. This report can give me something that gives me a much more accurate understanding of what I need to allocate in terms of resources and time, as well as manage my expectations and the other people in my organisation. So somebody might come out to me and say, we need an ERP system that we put in place in 2 weeks. You do one of these reports and it'll tell you that, well, this process is actually a bit longer. This is how the process works. And these are the resources you're going to need to actually do that. So by managing those expectations from the outset, you get in front of people setting business budgets based on no information. So you can be part of that process, and the fact that it's you who is actually providing this information, and if it does involve pricing, then you're already ahead of the curve with your reputation. So it's a very important tool that we see for B2B, and we see a growing need for it across the board. What we also find is that there are some off-the-shelf solutions around doing these things, but they really don't work particularly well. You're better off building something that is particularly targeted to your target audience, as well as your business and the goals that you want to actually set for your business. The other thing that we want to touch on today is helping you as part of the managing your expectations is what is the average B2B marketing spend as a percentage of revenue. If you're talking about a B2B product, the average spend is about 9% of your revenue, and it's revenue, not profit here we're talking about. And the B2B service, it's more like 7.9%. If your organisation has revenue of less than $25 million or is in a high growth stage, then you will want to ramp those numbers up. I will break that down a little bit more for you, so that if you're in different sectors, for example, whether it's banking, financial, insurance, it's 9.2, but if you're in manufacturing, it's more like 2.4% of your revenue. So understanding what others are spending in your space is going to give you a better indication of what you should be allocating to your marketing to get the results that you hope to get. Another important consideration is the role of technology in marketing. Marketing budgets now are allocating 26%, and it's growing, I think, at about 2 to 3% a year of their budget entirely to marketing technology. So whether that's a CRM, whether it's marketing automation software, or call to action solutions like calculators and so on, there is an increasing spend in that technology because it's playing an increasing role in converting customers. What we might do is throw it over to question time now. And
okay,
Norman, if you
thanks for that. Yep, thanks for that, Craig. I've got a few questions already lined up, but we'd like to encourage those of you who are attending today to add some more questions other than the ones that have already been typed in. Craig, the first question I have here comes from Mara. How long does it take to generate new leads?
Oh, that's a bit like a piece of string. How long is a piece of string? It really depends on your individual business. So we've seen clients that have sales cycles that take up to 18 months to 2 years. And in some cases, with those clients, we've seen that time reduced down to something like 6 weeks. But it really does depend on your business type and what you're selling. The more complex your solution is, the larger the investment, generally the longer it takes because the qualification process takes longer and there are more people involved in that. If you've got a purchase which is, say, under $10,000, generally the process can happen much faster.
Okay. The next one, Craig, it looks like you fell into your own trap of not using plain speak. Maria asked, what does UX mean?
UX means user experience. So when we're talking about websites, we're designing them in a way that there are certain standardizations that we use in terms of the way that people like to navigate the way around sites. We use technology which allows us to, once we launch a website, to see how people are engaging with that. So we use things like heat maps and that to see what people are stopping on pages. We can see what people are clicking on a page. We can even see things like what they term rage clicks. So there's spots on a page where people think an image or something is a button and they're clicking on it madly trying to actually go to the next page. So part of UX design is it's about creating a user experience that is something that fits with the existing expectations of people using websites. But you also want to add in an element which surprises and delights people so that it's not just the same website as your competitors. It's something that has a bit of, not so much a wow factor, but it's like, oh, I didn't expect that. And all of those little, what we term brand joys, helps build your profile and brand recognition as well. But it also helps people continue on their journey through your website. So that is not just your desktop. We have to consider how that actually works with a mobile device. So, for example, with a smartphone, you're not tapping on the screen, you're scrolling using your thumb. So sometimes we'll put the navigation at the base of the screen. There's active fields that people want to engage with. We want to make it as simple as possible for people to get to where they want to get to quickly. We also need to consider everything. For example, we don't have a whole page of copy. Copy will be broken up into blocks of, say, 100 words so that people can navigate by subheads and get to the information they want, because people rarely read in a linear process anymore. They generally scroll down, find the content they want, read that, and then they might go back to the top of the page and start again. But it's all about capturing attention in a world where people are suffering from, they're overwhelmed by the amount of information and things that they're seeing, and they want to move on to the next thing. So our goal is to get there and hold it.
Okay, thanks for that, Craig. I've never heard of rage clicking before. Please add in some more questions, people. We've got Craig here, so we might as well pick his brain as best we can. It's interesting you said a few of those things, because Maria also asked, do you still read, I can't even read. Do people still read all the content on websites?
People do read content on websites. B2B depends on it. It's a very important part of the B2B process. If I'm selling you a pair of jeans, I need to only describe what sizes they are and what it's made from. There doesn't need to be information about who designed the jeans, where they came from, what they're made from. A lot of that sort of stuff is not important. But if you're in the B2B space and you're selling me a $200,000 piece of technology or equipment, you need to be able to go into it in a little bit more detail and to get people to read that content. So there are proven processes in terms of making sure that you develop content in such a way that people are going to read more and more. The more people can read your content or want to read content on your website, the greater chance you have of qualifying them. And so the short answer, I suppose, is yes, people do read content, but they don't read everything. They're more interested in sites that make reading attractive. And that goes back to the whole Netflix model where it's about capturing people's attention. And sometimes you might use humor, sometimes you might use facts. There's a lot of different tools that we have in our toolbox that we use with clients to make sure that content is something that is going to be read. And we find that by doing it right, you can really see a big difference on the content that you've got right and the content that you've got wrong in terms of how people read it and how much of it they actually read and their journeys from that point on.
Okay, thanks for that. Maro obviously has an interest in leads generation because he's asked, how much should I spend on paid ad campaigns to generate leads? Is that another one of those how long's a piece of string questions?
It is very much so. With all of this, what we've discussed today is very much a top-down view of marketing strategy for the B2B space. So we've covered off everything from how you build your brand and your reputation, how you get leads into your website, the steps that you go through to qualify those leads so that then they become a qualified lead that you can then convert at your end. Programmatic or paid ads do play a role in that, but you really need to drill down into making sure you've ticked all the other boxes before you allocate a spend. And the spend is very much dependent on what you want to achieve. If you want strong, immediate growth, then you might allocate more money. If you're looking at a more sustainable growth model, you may spread that spend out over a long time. The key is to looking at all of your marketing not so much as a cost, but as an investment. You should be considering from the very outset, if I'm going to spend $1, I want to be able to earn $3 or $10 back. So all your modeling should be based around that, and programmatic should fit into that. So if the KPIs aren't right, then you may not go down the programmatic path, you might go down a different path. So it's very important to consider every aspect, look at your budget. You should be thinking of your B2B marketing as part of your corporate culture going forward. It's not an add-on. It should be something that becomes a profit center. For every dollar you spend, you get a return on that. And then you can build on that over time. And if you do it right, then you can actually build a scalable, predictable model to continue to build your pipeline and to get customers even when things go off the rails like we've had with COVID. One of the benefits of the marketing and the techniques we're talking about today is it allows you to pivot quickly. So one day you might be selling a particular product, and then all of a sudden through availability or some other issue or some other competitor coming into the market, you may have to change your business model straight away. Your marketing allows you to pivot very quickly and change your communication strategy probably quicker than you can any other aspect of your business. So when we're talking a bit about B2B business agility, marketing plays several roles. So one, it draws customers into the fold and generates new leads and new opportunities. It also acts as a very important feedback mechanism. The data that you get from your website will give you an understanding of how you are perceived in the world by potential customers, but also what products and services are getting people's attention. So there's that feedback loop that you can also have in this process. It's also a very important way of actually attracting the best people to your organisation. When organisations build their brand, their websites nowadays, that's an important consideration, because what they want to do is make sure that that profile that they build for their products and services online also works as a way of qualifying potential staff to come and work in their organisations, which is becoming increasingly an issue. Getting good people is always a challenge. If you've got a strong and creative and interesting online profile, then that's going to attract the right people to your organisation.
Okay, thanks for that, Craig. Interesting segue from how much do you spend on an ad campaign to employment.
But they all need to play. The thing about this world is that everything's interconnected. None of these things exist in isolation. So your website might generate media coverage for you. It might help you build new business relationships or new partnerships. It can generate new leads and opportunities. It can help you deal with bad reviews online. There are so many things that you can actually do with this solution outside of just purely sales. And believe it or not, the programmatic advertising or the paid advertising does actually play part of that process as well.
Okay, great. What about email campaigns?
We didn't touch on email campaigns today, but email campaigns are a very important part of any marketing strategy. Generally, what we find is that people underutilize their databases. They also don't tend to keep them very clean. That's a missed opportunity, because if you have, whether it's a few hundred or a few thousand contacts, if you maintain that list and you use a CRM such as the ones that Star provides, then you're in a better position to maintain communication with your customers on a regular basis. What you should be doing is thinking about emailing your customers a minimum of once a month, and even your contacts. What they've found, research indicates that you can send up to 10 emails to your customers a month, and it's not considered a negative thing. Yes, you will get some people opt out, but the vast majority of people won't. And as long as your emails are targeted, then you can get some really effective results out of it. So again, it's reinforcing the information that you may have on your website, and ultimately most of the activity around emails should drive activity back into your website.
Okay, the last question I've got here, Craig, is also website related. How big should my website be? My number of pages.
What we find is that most B2B businesses, their websites are too thin. So they might have 15, 20 pages or something like that, and they think that covers off everything. They might even have a single product or service that they're actually selling. You need to have a pretty substantial website, but it's built over time. You don't have to come out of the gate with a website with hundreds of pages of content. But if you're regularly putting up new stories and articles every 2 weeks, like we would recommend, then what you find is that over a period of a year, you will organically grow the size of your website by 25 pages alone, just with that. The goal is to make sure that the people who are coming to your site in different stages of qualification have enough substance there's enough substance there for them to continue their journeys. If you don't have enough information, then you're really sending a signal that there's no reason to come back. If there's more for me to explore and every piece of content is valuable content, then that's going to be really beneficial to me as a potential customer. Also, the more pages that you actually have in your website, and again, they have to be quality pages, the more pages that can be indexed online. So that means that there's more opportunities for you to be discovered for people using different, what they term long-term keyword searches online.
Okay, great. Thanks, Craig. We've run out of time and we've run out of questions. Firstly, I'd like to thank Craig Harris from DST for providing his time today in presenting today's webinar and his invaluable experience. I'd also like to thank everyone who registered and attended today's webinar. We appreciate that everyone's busy and the time is short and valuable. So taking the time out of your day to join us is much appreciated. As I mentioned, you should receive a copy or a link to this webinar within 24 hours of the webinar. If you haven't received it, please give me an email and I'll arrange a link to be sent to you. If you have any questions that we haven't addressed today, please feel free to email me direct and I can pass you on direct to Craig if necessary. Or feel free to look up Craig's website direct, Digital Storytelling Collective, and I'm sure that Craig would appreciate receiving any emails direct. So once again, thank you and have a great day.